Imagine a scene that touches the heart. After 15 years of marriage, a devoted wife is brutally humiliated by her own husband with cruel words. "Filthy fat woman, go back to the kitchen." These words pierced not only her ears but also her soul, leaving deep emotional scars. Who hasn't felt diminished, devalued, or incapable in the face of hurtful words? The pain of humiliation and the weight of injustice are universal, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This is a story not only of pain but also of overcoming it. Let's explore how inner strength and courage can transform suffering into personal growth, restoring not only self-esteem but also hope. Nadia and Giulio have a love story that spans decades, marked by ups and downs over their 35 years of marriage. When they met, Giulio was captivated by Nadia's beauty and vibrant personality. Shortly after they started dating, he didn't hesitate to propose, eager to build a life together. Initially, they faced significant financial challenges, but Giulio, with his determination as a civil engineer, managed to overcome the difficulties and is now a prominent figure in a renowned construction company. Nadia dedicated herself entirely to the role of wife and mother, being a central figure in the lives of their two children, Carlos, a 10-year-old boy full of curiosity about the world around him, and Laura, a 13-year-old teenager with a passion for music and adventure stories. Over the years, as she cared for the family, Nadia saw her physical appearance change gradually. What used to be long, black hair that made her stand out anywhere had turned into a simple, messy bun, a change that reflected the growing pressures and responsibilities she faced. Giulio's words about her appearance began to hurt her deeply. He used to make harsh comments about her hair and weight, a sensitive issue for Nadia, who struggled to stay confident while balancing household and family demands. She tried not to let these comments shake her, but deep down, they left painful marks. Their relationship, once a romance full of promises, began to slowly wear down. Giulio, once attentive and present, started to be away more frequently. He now came home late, often smelling of perfume and showing signs of exhaustion. Nadia, initially interpreting this as an effort on his part to stay fit and encouraging her to do the same, began to question his intentions. It was during a distressing phone conversation with her confidant Beatriz that Nadia started to notice something deeper. Beatriz, ever observant, pointed out subtle changes in Giulio's behavior that indicated something beyond a simple midlife crisis. She suggested that Nadia pay closer attention to the clues she was receiving, leaving her alarmed about what might be happening behind the scenes. Nadia, now confronted with a growing sense of discomfort and uncertainty, knew she needed to investigate further to uncover the truth about her marriage and the man with whom she had shared most of her life. Nadia became very worried when she noticed that her husband, Giulio, was coming home late and always smelling of perfume. She began to suspect that he might be hiding something. Despite having promised love and respect at the altar, Nadia started to question whether Giulio was being faithful. Her friend Beatriz suggested that Nadia check Giulio's pockets and phone for any evidence. Nadia agreed, determined to prove to herself and to Beatriz that Giulio was not unfaithful. One night, when Giulio came home excited and perfumed as usual, Nadia waited for him to shower before investigating. While Giulio was distracted in the shower, Nadia searched his clothes pockets. At first, she found nothing suspicious, but then, upon closer inspection, she found a strange card with a handwritten message. "I loved visiting this place with you. I love you." The card indicated that Giulio had been to a bar with another woman who loved him. Nadia felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that Giulio kept these cards in a drawer of the dresser as mementos of his bar encounters. She found several other similar cards, all with affectionate notes. Nadia was shocked to discover that her husband had a secret life of encounters outside the marriage. When she heard Giulio turn off the shower, Nadia quickly put everything back in place so he wouldn't suspect anything. She never imagined that, after 15 years of marriage, her husband could have a lover. Nadia was afraid of losing Giulio and her family, so she decided not to confront him immediately. Instead, Nadia chose to fight for her marriage. She got dressed up and prepared dinner, trying to maintain normalcy for her children. When Giulio saw Nadia with a hint of red lipstick on her lips, he smiled, unaware that his wife was struggling with the pain of her discovery. Thus, Nadia decided to face the difficult situation with courage, determined to protect her family while confronting Gachulio's secret. One day, Gachulio came home and saw his wife, Nadia, walking through the kitchen with a steaming tray of meat and sauce. The delicious aroma filled the air, blending with the soft sound of her steps. But something caught his attention even more. Nadia's lips were stained with bright red lipstick. In an instant, a curious suspicion crossed his mind. Was she indulging in hidden food? The thought made Gachulio smile involuntarily, but at the same time, a pang of concern arose in his heart. Almost letting the tray slip from her hands, Nadia was saved by the quick intervention of Laura, her attentive daughter. With tearful eyes, Nadia tried to explain timidly that she had just put on lipstick. The revelation made Gachulio's expression shift to one of concerned seriousness. He gently asked why she was dressing up that way, as if searching for something he couldn't fully understand. Nadia then murmured that she just wanted to make dinner more special for him. These words made Gachulio chuckle lightly, but his tone soon turned serious again as he advised her not to worry so much about being beautiful. As Nadia moved away to fetch the salad from the kitchen, she actually needed a moment for herself. She felt deeply hurt by Gachulio's words, especially since it happened in front of the children. Laura, noticing her mother's sadness, went to her in the kitchen. At just 35, Nadia felt too young to give up on her family life and start over. Looking into Laura's eyes with a mix of love and sadness, Nadia said she couldn't imagine a life without Tullio, without the home they had built together, or without the children they had raised with so much love. She promised herself that she would win back their love and become the woman he fell in love with in the past. Laura tried to argue further, but they ended up returning to the dining room with a fresh bowl of leafy salad. As they ate in silence, the weight of the unspoken words between them hung in the air. A week later, Nadia made a painful discovery. While holding Gachulio's phone as he finished shaving, a notification appeared. She tried to unlock the phone to see who was sending messages, but couldn't. However, some words she managed to read were enough to break her heart. Gachulio was speaking ill of her to someone he considered his lover. Devastated, Nadia confronted Gachulio, who coldly admitted that he was married to a burden. These words hurt her deeply, but Nadia decided not to let herself be defeated. Instead, she doubled her efforts to win back her husband's love. She saved every penny to buy some makeup at the local market and even started wearing clothes that reminded her of the happy times they shared together. Nadia was determined in the last few days to eat only the essentials to try to fit back into her old clothes, which now seemed tight after gaining a few pounds. Every time she looked at her wardrobe, she felt a mix of frustration and determination. The clothes that once fit so well now seemed like a challenge. Tullio, her husband, came with an unexpected request. He needed Nadia to wash some clothes for him. It was for a weekend trip with his boss and other colleagues. They planned to visit a site where a new project would be built. Nadia agreed without hesitation, seeing it as a chance to show that she could still be useful and efficient despite her own concerns. When Nadia saw suspicious messages flashing on Tullio's phone screen, a chill ran down her spine. She knew, deep down, that something wasn't right. But she decided to keep her suspicions to herself, at least until the end of the week. The hope that Tullio might recognize her value and abandon any idea of infidelity kept her silent. As Nadia dealt with these emotions, Gachulio, as impatient as ever, shouted for her, asking for the washed clothes and snacks prepared for his frequent nighttime visits from work friends. It was a routine that, although tiring, Nadia tried to handle with a smile. She dreamed of the day she would finally meet Tullio's colleagues, wondering if she could win their favor. Even with the pressure to meet Gachulio's and his guests' expectations, Nadia found unexpected relief by inviting her friend Beatriz to help. Beatriz, a vibrant and direct presence, was shocked to learn that Nadia had not yet considered divorce when faced with Tullio's betrayals. She encouraged Nadia to think more about her own happiness and less about others' expectations. After hours in the kitchen, Nadia felt grateful to have Beatriz by her side. Beatriz even lent her a shapewear to help Nadia feel more comfortable in a dress she hadn't worn in years. Despite the difficulties and uncertainties in her marriage, Nadia felt a comforting warmth realizing she still had support and friendship around her. Nadia felt somewhat uncomfortable in the elegant dress and high heels she had chosen for the night. She wanted to make a good impression on Gachulio, even letting her long hair down, which she usually kept up. When Gachulio finally came home with some friends after a long workday, his wife and boss hadn't arrived yet. Upon opening the door, he saw Nadia and Beatriz in the living room, with an anxious smile on their faces, waiting to meet them. Noticing the anticipation in the air, Gachulio decided to speed things up. He invited Nadia to join him in the kitchen, where he prepared a generous charcuterie board. He insisted that it wasn't necessary to prepare canapés, but when he felt the need, he went to get a tray from the kitchen. Seeing him approaching the living room with the tray, Nadia tried to follow him discreetly, but he gently interrupted her, asking her to stay in the kitchen and make sure everything was perfect, as more guests were arriving quickly. Initially, Nadia thought Gachulio was just trying to avoid confusion in the living room, but soon a sense of unease settled in. Meanwhile, Beatriz, in the living room, noticed her friend's prolonged absence and decided to investigate. Entering the kitchen, she found Nadia sitting in a chair, with a lost look in her eyes. Surprised, Beatriz asked why Nadia wasn't in the living room with the others. Calmly, Nadia explained that Gachulio had asked for her last-minute help in the kitchen. Beatriz's sharp mind quickly grasped what was really happening. She guided Nadia back to the living room, where the tension was palpable. As they approached, they saw a subtle look of disgust on Gachulio's face. Nevertheless, he decided to keep up appearances in front of the boss and his wife, greeting everyone politely. Nadia made an effort to be warm with Gachulio's friends, and they seemed genuinely interested in her. On the other hand, Gachulio felt increasingly uncomfortable seeing his colleagues interact with his wife. Feeling the need to resolve the situation discreetly, Gachulio led Nadia to the dining room, trying to minimize the embarrassment. He looked at her with a mix of frustration and resignation, explaining that he was trying to be nice but felt limited by the circumstances. Nadia's confusion only grew with his words, which inadvertently led him to raise his voice, revealing his emotions involuntarily. At the party, the music pulsed through the room, but it was not enough to drown out the angry words escaping Gachulio's lips as he stared at Nadia with a mix of contempt and frustration. His eyes traveled over her worn dress, a piece that no longer fit her and was now the target of his cutting remarks. He didn't want her to become a pretty woman for the party. He only wished she didn't look like a beggar, as he harshly put it. The tension escalated as Gachulio, fueled by anger, grabbed Nadia by the arms, shaking her while hurling cruel insults. He called her fat and ordered her to go home. For him, it was imperative that she did not leave the party, reflecting his desire to maintain appearances at any cost. Back in the room, the heavy atmosphere was interrupted by Nadia, who dared to mention Soraya, a figure unknown to many there but not to Gachulio. He swallowed hard when he realized his wife was aware of her existence, but tried to downplay the impact of this uncomfortable revelation. With a mix of apologies and justifications, Gachulio defended Soraya as someone who would not embarrass him, unlike Nadia. He described her as young, beautiful, and slim, attributes he emphasized as desirable and now valued above all. Gachulio's decision was clear. He no longer needed to maintain the facade of a marriage with Nadia now that the truth was out. He assigned her the responsibility of managing the house, while Soraya occupied a special place in his heart. Back in the room, Gachulio's perception shifted when he noticed all eyes were on him, including his bosses. He felt as though every word spoken to Nadia echoed off the walls, judged by the guests for his actions and harsh words. Initially nervous about the exposure, Gachulio attempted to lighten the mood with a tasteless joke, comparing his situation to bringing home a dragon and marrying a princess. The attempt at humor was poorly received by everyone, especially the boss and his wife, who decided to leave shortly afterward, leaving the party in an awkward silence. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Nadia sought refuge, followed by Beatriz, her worried friend. Not finding Nadia there, Beatriz noticed the abandoned high heels, a sign that something was wrong. Determined to find her, Beatriz began searching the other rooms, increasingly concerned about her friend's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Gachulio, despite trying to appear calm, began to worry about Nadia's absence. He tried to downplay the situation, telling Beatriz that Nadia was just being dramatic and would return soon. However, as time passed and the guests dispersed, Giulio's concern grew, fearing the worst as the silence of the house echoed his anxiety. Giulio and Nadia led a hectic life. He spent long hours at work, while she devoted herself to the home and children with care. But one day, Nadia simply disappeared without a trace. Giulio, initially worried, hoped she would return soon. However, a week passed with no sign of Nadia. He called Beatriz, a close friend, for any information, but Beatriz was just as lost as he was, not knowing Nadia's whereabouts. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months of uncertainty. It was then that a letter arrived. A lawyer representing Nadia informed Giulio of her plans to file for divorce and claim half of the couple's assets. The news shocked Giulio deeply. It had never crossed his mind that Nadia would make such a drastic decision without at least talking to him. The situation became even more complicated when he lost his job. The boss's wife did not like him, which ultimately cost him his position. With a broken heart and his life turned upside down, Giulio decided to sign the divorce papers. He wanted Nadia to keep the children, hoping it would give him a chance to start a new life. It was during this tumultuous time that Soraya entered his life, a special woman who made him feel the warmth of love again. They fell deeply in love. Despite losing a lot of money and his home, Giulio felt that he had finally found true happiness beside Soraya. Just as things seemed to start calming down, Nadia returned home. She was disoriented and confused, but it was Beatriz who found her first and helped her recover. Giulio then realized that, despite all the suffering and twists and turns, what mattered most were himself and his children. With Soraya's support and the unconditional love of his children, he could finally look to the future with hope and joy. When Giulio stopped in front of them, Marcia, the wife of his boss, told Nadia that she understood everything she had been through that night and probably throughout her married life. Marcia was a wealthy and elegant woman, but when asked about Nadia, she admitted she knew nothing, as Nadia was without money and work. After a brief conversation with her husband, Marcia invited Nadia to get into the car. Beatriz took on the task of spreading the news that her friend had been with Marcia for the past few months, helping her regain her self-esteem and find a new path. Nadia began attending college, studying architecture, which would ensure a job at the construction company where her husband worked after graduation. During this time, Nadia discovered that Marcia had also been through an abusive relationship before meeting her current husband. This surprised them even more. Marcia explained that the decision to fire Giulio only after he signed the divorce was to avoid the judge denying Nadia's rights due to unemployment. Giulio was fired as soon as Nadia got everything she asked for. When Giulio visited his old home to pick up some clothes that had been left there, he was surprised to find Nadia so radiant when she opened the door. Since the incident, he had never seen her so beautiful. Nadia's lawyer represented her in the divorce and asset division hearings while she stood at the door, well-dressed and confident, merely pointing to the suitcase with her clothes. Giulio looked at himself, remembering how he was when they met nearly 20 years ago. Nadia, on the other hand, no longer knew what that look meant. With time apart, she realized she had been withering next to Giulio. Nadia had always been cheerful and confident, but her husband's lack of respect had brought her down. Beatriz and Marcia's help was crucial for her to learn to love herself again. When Giulio tried to start a conversation, Nadia simply nodded toward the door without saying a word. He left with the suitcase, admitting he was furious to see her so well dressed. However, he soon remembered that he could now spend more time with Sonia. Giulio and Sonia began searching for an apartment to rent, but she was not satisfied with the options he had. When they first met, Giulio worked for a major construction company. Now, a man named Giulio was going through tough times. He was unemployed and had just divorced, losing half of his assets. Soraya, his ex-wife, decided to leave him for another man who had a lot of money. This left Giulio very sad and discouraged. He began to suspect that Soraya was seeing someone else, as she made excuses not to see him. This idea made him miserable, not because he still loved her, but because he feared ending up with nothing. 2 weeks later, Giulio received the news that Soraya was marrying a co-worker of his. This caused an unpleasant scene at his home to spread among industry employers. No one wanted to hire someone known for being cruel and violent with his ex-wife. Giulio's life drastically worsened. He felt very sad and had low self-esteem, just as Nadia, his ex-wife, felt when she was married to him. Meanwhile, Nadia continued studying and managed to support her children well with the divorce money. She was happy because she felt valued as a person and a woman. If you enjoyed this moving story, subscribe to the Universo Ian Palabras channel for more stories like this. Your support is very important to us. I'm sure the next stories you'll see will also move you. A big kiss and see you in the next video.